There is a tiara sitting inside the royal vault that carries more weight than any crown in Britain. It is not the most expensive piece of jewelry the royal family owns. It is not even the most decorated. But it is the one that made a grown queen break down. And it is the one that put Prince William, the quiet, composed future king, in a direct standoff with his own stepmother. This is not a story about diamonds and pearls. This is a story about grief, power, loyalty, and a mother whose memory refuses to fade. This is the story of the lovers not Tiara, Princess Diana, and the moment everything inside Buckingham Palace changed. Every piece of jewelry inside the royal collection has a history, but not every piece carries a heartbeat. The lovers not tiara is different. It was made in 1914 for Queen Mary, crafted in white gold and diamonds with 19 hanging pearl drops that catch the light with every single movement. It is the kind of piece that was built to impress. But when Princess Diana started wearing it in the early years of her marriage to Prince Charles, something changed. The tiara stopped being just an heirloom. It became something personal, something human. Diana wore it with a quiet confidence that was entirely her own. She wore it to state banquets and formal dinners. She wore it while standing beside Charles at events where she was clearly uncomfortable, and even in those moments, the tiara seemed to give her a kind of armor. Photographers loved it. The public loved it. Over time, people stopped calling it the Queen Mary tiara. They started calling it Diana's tiara. That name shift meant everything. When Diana died in 1997, the grief that swept through Britain was unlike anything the country had seen in generations. People left flowers outside Buckingham Palace for days. They stood in silence on the streets of London. They cried openly for a woman many of them had never met but felt they knew deeply. And in the middle of all that grief were two boys, a 15-year-old William and a 12-year-old Harry, who had just lost their mother, not the people's princess, not the icon. Their mother, the woman who tucked them in at night, who slipped them fast food past palace protocol, who held their hands and told them they were enough. She was gone. The tiara went back into the vault. Years passed. The world moved on the way it always does after heartbreak, slowly and imperfectly. Charles remarried. He wed Camilla Parker Bowles in 2005, the woman who had been at the center of the most painful chapter in Diana's life. The wedding was not a celebration that William and Harry found easy. Prince Harry admitted in his autobiography that both he and his brother were against their father marrying Camilla. They were polite at the ceremony. They showed up. But something behind their eyes had changed permanently. International Business Times. For years, Camilla worked hard to reposition herself in public life. She took on royal duties. She smiled through the criticism. She attended the events and gave the speeches and wore the appropriate clothes. Britain, slowly and somewhat reluctantly, began to warm to her. By the time Charles became king in September 2022, following the death of Queen Elizabeth II, Camilla stood beside him as queen. The transformation was complete, or so it seemed. The trouble with the royal collection is that it belongs to everyone and no one at the same time. The jewels inside that vault are not the personal property of any individual royal. They are part of the crown estate, passed down from monarch to monarch, available to be worn by any senior member of the royal family at the discretion of whoever sits on the throne. Many pieces of Princess Diana's jewelry were actually part of the royal collection, which is passed down through generations of the family and the monarch. In simple terms, whoever the king approves can wear them. And when Charles became king, that meant Camilla had access to a collection that included pieces once deeply associated with Diana. Royal Insider. Camilla had already worn and redesigned several pieces over the years that were once loved by Princess Diana, causing quite a lot of controversy by doing so. One of the most talked-about moments came when she appeared wearing an emerald and diamond necklace that Diana had been famously photographed in, but the piece had been altered. According to reports, the Queen redesigned an emerald and diamond necklace Diana had been photographed wearing in Vienna back in 1986 and turned it into a brooch. The reaction online was immediate and sharp. Some called it plain tacky and absolutely appalling, suggesting the piece should have been passed on to Diana's sons instead. Others argued that the piece was never Diana's personal property. It belonged to the crown, and Camilla had every legal right to wear it however she wished. Reader's Digest +2. That argument is technically correct, but there is a difference between what is legal and what is felt, and what the public felt was something deep and protective when it came to anything that carried Diana's fingerprints. The lover's knot tiara had spent years quietly in the vault. After Diana's death, it was not worn often. When Kate Middleton married William in 2011, the tiara began a new chapter. The Queen Mary's lover's knot tiara has since become Kate's favorite option out of the 5 tiaras she has cycled through during her royal career, a piece also worn by her late mother-in-law Princess Diana. Kate wore it with a natural grace, and the public responded warmly, partly because of its beauty, but also because it felt like a quiet tribute. Here was William's wife, wearing the tiara his mother had loved. There was something right about that, something healing. AOL. But behind the scenes, conversations were happening about royal jewelry that most people never knew about. When Charles became king, the access to the royal collection shifted. Camilla, now queen, had a broader range of pieces available to her. And according to reports and royal commentators, there was growing tension about who had access to what, and under whose authority those decisions were being made. The moment that brought this tension fully into the open came during preparations for a family wedding. Reports emerged of a high-stakes disagreement involving Camilla and William over whether a family member would be permitted to wear a royal tiara on her wedding day. According to a palace source, Prince William intervened after Queen Camilla's office allegedly attempted to prevent the bride from accessing jewels from the royal vault, apparently because she did not come from an aristocratic background. The Royal Observer. When word of this reached William, the reaction was swift. The move prompted frustration from Prince William, who reportedly believed Queen Camilla had no right to decide over who would have access to the royal family's jewelry collection. His relationship with the wider royal family runs deep, and the idea that Camilla had interfered in what should have been a private and joyful family matter hit him in a personal place. As reported, William thereafter authorized a total administrative lockdown of the royal vaults to ensure the situation would not repeat itself. It was a calculated move, one that sent a clear and deliberate message about where the boundaries lay. International Business Times. The Royal Observer. Whether or not the lover's knot tiara was specifically mentioned in these conversations, the broader message was unmistakable. When it came to the jewelry collection and anything associated with his mother, William was drawing a firm line, and no title, no position, no royal rank was going to move it. The significance of the lover's knot tiara inside that wider context is impossible to separate from Diana's memory. The tiara had become, in the public imagination, almost inseparable from who Diana was. It was not just a beautiful object. It was a symbol, and any conversation about who could wear it when, and under what circumstances, was always going to carry emotional weight far heavier than the pearls and diamonds themselves. For Camilla, who had spent 2 decades trying to step out of Diana's shadow, this was not a comfortable place to find herself. The public's attachment to Diana has never faded. Every time Camilla appeared in a piece once associated with Diana, she risked reigniting that grief and that anger. And yet the pull of the collection, and perhaps the desire to fully inhabit her role as queen, seemed to create a recurring tension that never quite resolved itself. Royal experts who followed the situation closely noted that the atmosphere inside the palace during this period was unusually tense. The jewelry dispute revealed something that had been simmering for years. William and Camilla are not close. They were never close. Royal commentators have frequently noted the historical tensions between William and his stepmother, and the rumored strain reportedly continued even years after King Charles married Queen Camilla. The history between them is complicated in ways that go far beyond what anyone can fully understand from the outside. William loves his father. He has tried, in his own way, to accept the reality of his father's marriage. But accepting Camilla as a stepmother and accepting Camilla making decisions about his mother's legacy are 2 entirely different things. International Business Times. The emotional cost to William in these moments should not be underestimated. He was 15 when his mother died. He walked behind her coffin as it moved through the streets of London while the whole world watched. He has spoken, in carefully chosen words over the years, about how deeply he still feels her absence. He gave his daughter the middle name Diana. He placed his mother's sapphire engagement ring on Kate's finger, ensuring that a piece of her would always be present in his daily life. William said at the time of his engagement announcement that the ring was his mother's, and it was very special to him, just as Kate was very special to him. These are not the actions of a man who has moved on. These are the actions of a son who carries grief with him quietly every single day. Cheat. When reports emerged that Camilla had been visibly shaken following the confrontation and the vault lockdown, the image struck people differently depending on where their loyalties lay. For those who had come to appreciate Camilla's long journey toward royal acceptance, it was a humanizing moment. A woman who had worked so hard, for so long, finding herself still unable to escape the weight of the past. For those who had never fully forgiven her for her role in the breakdown of Charles and Diana's marriage, the reaction was far less sympathetic. But what most observers agreed on was this. The tiara had done what no press release or royal statement ever could. It had brought the pain of the past directly into the present, without warning and without apology. It had stripped away the formality and the protocol and the carefully managed royal image. And underneath all of it was just what it had always been, a family that is still, after all these years, trying to figure out how to live with what happened. There is a broader truth buried inside this story that has nothing to do with crowns or vaults or official protocol. It is a truth about how grief works inside families, especially powerful families where everything must be managed and controlled and presented correctly to the outside world. In the House of Windsor, emotions are not meant to spill over. They are meant to be contained. Generations of royals have been trained from childhood to maintain composure in public, no matter what is unraveling behind closed doors. But grief does not care about training. It finds the cracks. It pushes through them, sometimes in the most unexpected moments, in arguments about jewelry or access to a vault, or who has the right to wear a tiara that belonged, in every way that truly mattered, to a woman the whole world still misses. Camilla wearing and altering pieces that were once loved by Diana caused quite a lot of controversy, with royal fans divided sharply, some calling it outright disrespectful, others pointing to the legal reality that many of these pieces were always part of the crown estate and not Diana's personal property. But the law has never been the point. The point has always been feeling. And what people feel about Diana, even nearly 3 decades after her death, is something the law cannot regulate and palace protocol cannot contain. Reader's Digest. Diana has been gone for almost 30 years. Her sons are grown men. One of them is the future King of England. And yet her presence inside that family is so strong that a single tiara can still bring the whole carefully constructed facade crashing down. That is not weakness. That is love. That is what happens when someone is so fully herself, so fully alive, so deeply felt by the people who knew her and the billions who only ever knew of her, that no amount of time can make the world stop reaching for her. The lover's not tiara sits in the vault. Kate wears it at state banquets and it looks right on her. It always has. The tiara has become one of the most talked about symbols inside the royal household, sparking fierce debates and fueling tensions that go far beyond any single occasion or outfit choice. And somewhere inside that complicated, ancient, aching family, a son still remembers his mother wearing it. He remembers the way she walked into the room and how the pearl drops moved, and how she smiled at him across a table full of dignitaries who did not matter half as much as she did. He is the Prince of Wales now. He will be king. He has a kind of power his mother never had in life, and he will use it quietly and firmly to make sure that her memory is handled with the care it deserves. Not because of protocol, not because of palace rules, not because of what anyone tells him to do, but because she was his mother. And some things, no matter how many years pass, how many crowns change hands, or how many tiaras are locked behind vault doors, are simply not negotiable. AOL